In 1933, scientists invented a food with no flavor of its own. It wasn't sold in stores, it wasn't advertised on the radio. But the First Lady of the United States served it at White House dinners. It cost almost nothing to make. It came from two of the most boring ingredients imaginable, and for millions of starving American families, it was the difference between eating and not eating at all. Today, almost nobody remembers its name. It was called Milkorno, and this is the strange, forgotten story of the food that helped an entire generation survive the Great Depression. In October 1929, the stock market collapsed, and within a few short years, the United States fell into the worst economic crisis in its history. By the early 1930s, unemployment had exploded. Families who once had steady jobs were suddenly counting pennies just to put a single meal on the table. Malnutrition wasn't a distant fear anymore, it was showing up in children across the country. That's when a research team at Cornell University, led by home economist Flora Rose, set out to solve a very specific problem. How do you feed a hungry family for almost nothing? Their answer was strange, simple, and brilliant in its own limited way. They combined two of the cheapest, most shelf-stable ingredients in America: cornmeal and powdered skim milk, added a pinch of salt, and fortified it with extra vitamins and calcium. They called it Milkorno, milk plus corn. That was the entire idea. It could be boiled into a porridge, similar to oatmeal. It had almost no taste of its own, which meant it could be stretched into savory dishes too. Recipe pamphlets from the time list things like Milkorno tamale loaf, Milkorno chili, and even fried Milkorno polenta. And the marketing pitch was direct, almost desperate in its honesty. Meals for a family of five, for $5 a week. For families with almost nothing left to spend, that single promise was enough to make Milkorno worth trying. Here's where the story gets genuinely surprising. Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States, was a longtime supporter of the home economists at Cornell. As the Depression deepened, she began serving Milkorno-based meals at official White House dinners, not as a joke, and not as charity theater, but as a real demonstration. Her message to the country was simple. If the First Lady could serve this to her own guests, any struggling family could serve it too, without shame. It worked, at least for a while. Milkorno soon had siblings: Milkoato, made with oats, and Milkwheato, made with wheat. The government was so convinced of their value that it purchased an estimated 25 million pounds of Milkoato alone for hunger relief efforts. So if Milkorno fed so many people, why has almost nobody heard of it today? The honest answer is simple. Nobody actually loved eating it. It was nutritious, it was cheap, but it was also bland, sometimes gritty, and without careful storage, it could clump, spoil, or attract insects. Families ate it because they had to, not because they wanted to. As the Depression eased and World War II reshaped the American food system, cheaper and tastier alternatives slowly replaced it. Fortified cereals, canned goods, and eventually, post-war abundance made a flavorless survival porridge feel like a relic of a harder time, something people were eager to forget, not celebrate. And so it quietly vanished from kitchens, from grocery lists, and eventually from memory itself. But here's what makes Milkorno worth remembering. It wasn't a failed idea. For a brief, desperate moment in American history, a bowl of tasteless porridge invented by scientists, served by a First Lady, and eaten by millions of ordinary families helped keep an entire generation from going hungry. No brand, no flavor, no fame, just survival. One bland spoonful at a time. If this story surprised you, that's exactly why history like this deserves to be told, because sometimes the most important foods in American history are the ones nobody bothered to remember. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe, because there are more forgotten stories like this one still waiting to be told.